Wide receiver could be one of the more interesting position groups for the Indianapolis Colts in 2023. Will Michael Pittman Jr. solidify himself as the long-term wide receiver one for the Colts? Does Alec Pierce take the next step? And what about that battle between Josh Downs and Isaiah McKenzie? Well, let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, joined here by my co-host and fellow writer at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake, the 4th of July weekend is coming up pretty quickly. We're getting into the heat of the summer. Not a lot of football going on. And that's why we're doing these positional breakdowns, because there really isn't any football news going on. But hey, how you doing, Drake? How you preparing for the upcoming holiday weekend?
Well, me and my girlfriend Aubrey, we're trying to get some people to come over for a little campfire. So we're just getting things, prepped for that, where you haven't cleaned your house in like 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden, it's just spick and span, so that you don't look, you can have company over. But it's a great time to really get these positions covered. And I think we said this in the last episode, man, this is such a different team that it's worth it. It's very warranted. We need to dive into these wide receivers now. Pittman's obviously going to be one guy that, we're going to talk about, but it's going to be really fun to watch McKenzie versus Downs. It's going to be fun to talk about Alec Pierce and some of these other depth chart guys too.
Right. And wide receiver, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, but this group is going to be, again, one of the most crucial groups for the development of Anthony Richardson. I mean, Anthony Richardson can't catch the ball, so he's got to have guys that are right there and ready to go. The chat is already popping off, and Patrick started us off with a super chat already. Patrick is the legend. If you're new around here, you know that Patrick means business. Hey, Patrick, we love you. And we're going to get to your question first here tonight about the wide receivers. He says, does Michael Pittman Jr. prove he's a wide receiver one for the Colts? Yes, but where does he sit on a ranking chart compared to every other team's wide receiver one? Comparing all those names would be fun. And because you asked it, Patrick, that's the first thing we are going to do tonight here. Stats Matt in the building, saying it's hard to determine Pittman's Pittman's wide receiver one ability because of the volatility, if I can speak correctly, he's had at quarterback. John Davis is in the chat as well. It should have started by now, but I don't think he has proven to be a wide receiver one. Gary Stidham is here as well. Guys, we're going to have a very fun discussion about the wide receivers tonight. And if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and follow us on all the things like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on Twitter, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know whenever Drake and I are going live. Hit that like button on this video if you're enjoying us, because that is always a big help to us with the YouTube algorithm. And if you can't catch us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts, we're on there as well. So don't forget to subscribe to your favorite podcast platforms for the Horseshoe Huddle podcast. But Drake, without further ado, the people don't want to hear me talk about all that stuff. They want to talk about the wide receiver position. And we're going to dive right in. Because of that super chat, we're diving into Patrick's question right away. Right. Where does Mike, before we really dive in to our expectations for Michael Pittman Jr. For the 2023 season, Drake, where do you think he sits ranked on a chart? Say we're ranking all the wide receivers in the NFL. Where do you think Michael Pittman Jr. ranks as far as his standing within the NFL when compared to the other wide receiver ones around the league?
That's a really good question. I think the better way to answer that, because that's a whole episode right there. That's an entire episode, I think. So very well done, Patrick. Thank you again. I don't think that he is currently in the upper echelon. I don't think he's with the Stephon Diggs and, the Devontae Adams or, Devontae Smiths, AJ Browns of the world. I do think he is more alongside maybe even T. Higgins, maybe even a guy like DJ Moore, who has kind of similarly had some ups and downs at quarterback, coming from Carolina. He kind of gets a fresh start with Justin Fields. I think he's kind of more in the middle, though, because you just haven't been able to see him stick with somebody consistent, and he hasn't been able to show that true wide receiver one, stat line that everybody's looking for. So I think right now he's in the middle of the pack. Now, if you're talking about the upper echelon wide receiver ones, I think he's got to be behind most of them.
Yeah, I would say if we're talking about we're sitting here ranking all of the wide receivers in the NFL, I would say Michael Pittman can range from probably about, I would say, 18th to probably 22. I would see 18 to 22. That's probably a fair assessment for Michael Pittman Jr. because there are times where he can take over a game. I mean,
Oh,
we've
yeah.
seen it. We've seen where he's able to create separation. He's able to be a problem for opposing defenses. And there are other times where he might not be targeted for a good portion of the game, or it seems like he goes invisible per se. Is that his fault? Is it the offense's fault, or the quarterback issues that we have seen since Michael Pittman Jr. became an Indianapolis Colt? I think it's probably a little bit of both. I certainly think he could get better with his ability, but I also think, I mean, having a good quarterback throwing you the football is huge for that aspect as well. So I could see him when he's really on. He's probably around, I would say, 15. But there are some games where they make you question, is he a true number one in the NFL? And that's why I think when you're talking about altogether, where does he rank in wide receivers? I think you could make a case for him at 18. You could make a case for him at 22, 23, somewhere around there. But I do believe he is capable of being a wide receiver one and should be considered a wide receiver one in the NFL. So great question, Patrick, and
Yeah, thank you.
we really appreciate all the support as always. Gets us directly into our first topic about Michael Pittman Jr. And Stats Matt, I want to highlight this as well. He said he had over 1,000 yards with Wentz and almost 100 catches on that horrific offense we had last year. Give him continuity, and I think that's going to be huge for Michael Pittman Jr. He hasn't had, again, just like with all of these guys, he hasn't had the same quarterback for more than one season. Sometimes it's been a lot less than that. And his rookie season with Phillip Rivers, we saw him really start to come on towards the end of the year. That second season with Carson Wentz, it seemed like he had arrived. He was really the focus for the Colts offense. Last year with the quarterback carousel that they had, Pittman still put up almost 100 catches last year, had 900 yards, and I think it was like 4 touchdowns or something. But it was hard to really succeed for any of those guys in that kind of offense last year. So Drake, let's kick this off. What are your expectations for Michael Pittman Jr. in 2023?
I still expect him to be the go-to receiver for the offense. I mean, there's no one else yet that has elevated to convince me that, hey, no, he's the wide receiver too. I mean, for right now, we're talking about the expectations for the Colts, not the NFL. He is the number one wide receiver. He's going to be the guy they throw the most to. I expect him to continue to elevate his play. I know that sounds crazy, but he's going to have a quarterback that the mobility of this guy is going to potentially open up opportunities for Pittman. There's going to be a lot of different things that he can do with Richardson. And then I also do think that he's going to be used downfield more. I expect Pittman to get back to some of those shots where he would catch from Carson Wentz. Like I think one game was when he pulled one down in triple coverage, like 30 yards down the field against the Cardinals. Like, I mean, that was the kind of explosive play Michael Pittman can make downfield with that big frame of his. I think people forgot that that's something he can do. So there's a lot of other expectations too, but for me, those are the first 3 that really stick out.
We've got another super chat here from our girl Sarah. Sarah, again, we thank you so much for all your support. One of the ones that is consistently in the chat supporting us from day one. Sarah says, "Love you, Drake and Andrew. Pittman over 1,000 yards. I think this year in this offense, I'd be shocked if Pittman didn't get over 1,000 yards. I really think that Michael Pittman Jr. is we're going to see, I wouldn't say a breakout season for Michael Pittman, because I think he's known around the league, but I think he's going to assert himself and say, hey, I am a wide receiver one. I can be counted on for this team. And I think one of the easy benchmarks for that is over 1,000 yards. Sarah, greatly appreciate all of your support as always, and thank you so much for the super chat. But here's the biggest thing for me that and why I'm so confident in Michael Pittman Jr. this season is Shane Steichen, the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. When Shane Steichen was introduced as the Colts head coach, who was one of the first players that he mentioned? Michael Pittman Jr. Michael Pittman was at that press conference. Michael Pittman has been around the Colts facility all off season. When you talk about guys that Steichen wants to get involved in the offense, he's consistently talked about Michael Pittman Jr. The Colts and Shane Steichen believe that Michael Pittman can fill that A.J. Brown role in that Philadelphia Eagles offense to a T. And I think so as well. When you look at Michael Pittman Jr., he's 6'4", 225 pounds. He's a big wide receiver. You don't necessarily think that Michael Pittman is classified as a big wide receiver because he's more tall, long, and lanky. But when you put those two together, and then when you see Michael Pittman running with the ball in his hands, you realize how much power this kid actually has. So when you're talking about that X wide receiver role that AJ Brown had or currently has with the Philadelphia Eagles, you saw maybe it wasn't necessarily too many deep shots over the top. There were certainly times where that took place, but it was more routes over the middle, kind of that third down possession wide receiver. But being able to get Michael Pittman Jr. out into space and letting him run with the ball after the catch, he's angry with that football. He's a physical wide receiver with that football. So being able to put Michael Pittman Jr. in those types of situations, I really think is going to unlock really the perfect combination for Pittman's skill set. And that's why I think not only is he going to go over 1,000 yards, we could see a career high in yards, 1,200 yards, 1,300 yards for Michael Pittman, between a combination of Gardner Minshew and Anthony Richardson, or is it just Anthony Richardson? Who knows? But I think having this type of offense where Shane Steichen is going to continuously look for how to exploit mismatches and get his best players the football, I think Michael Pittman's going to fit seamlessly into that A.J. Brown type role that we saw last year in the Philadelphia Eagles offense. And it's something that the Colts are going to want to take advantage of early and often throughout this season to help give Anthony Richardson as much help as possible.
Yeah, and one thing that I would love to see is a happy Michael Pittman that's comfortable. You could see sometimes there was a little bit of frustration last season from him, not anything that wasn't completely justified. But man, he truly is a unique runner for a wide receiver. Once that guy gets the ball, a lot of receivers, they're kind of shifty. Maybe they're just super duper athletic, just stupid fast. Guys like Tyreek Hill, he's more of like a tight end when he catches the ball. He is just so mad when he's got that football. He'll run you over. He is physical. He wears down defenses. He's got that huge frame like you talk about. And look, 225, 230 pounds for a wide receiver. I don't care how tall you are. That's a lot of weight for a wide receiver. So you mix all that together and what Shane Steichen could potentially have in store for him, it really gets you excited. You just want to finally get him, kind of like Stats Matt mentioned, that continuity, because he's shown the numbers, but he just needs the quarterback consistency, and you might have yourself a star at wide receiver. Might. Don't jump the gun.
Right. And here's something that I kind of want to talk about too. Spooks Hill Joe says number ones don't drop passes or fumble. I'm surprised he's still here. No hate, just facts. I'm not sure where that's coming from, Joe, because when you look compared to the rest of the league, Michael Pittman Jr., his drop percentage is one of the lowest in the league, and his fumble percentage is one of the lowest in the NFL as well. So he really doesn't have a problem with ball security. There's not a single wide receiver receiver out there that's going to catch every single ball. And as far as drops and fumbles go, Michael Pittman Jr. is very low on that list. So that I don't think that if you want to talk about some other things that might constitute Michael Pittman as not being a wide receiver one, I'm all ears. But drop passes and fumbles just does not stand. But Drake, when we look to some of the biggest question marks that Michael Pittman Jr. has for this 2023 season. I mean, obviously he's in a contract year, so it seems like you really want to answer those questions if the Colts are going to give him that long-term contract that he desires. So what are some of your biggest question marks for Michael Pittman as he enters year 4?
Real quick, I want to address that, like the dropped catches and fumbles thing. There were moments where he could have, I think last season, there were some first downs, maybe some like extended plays he could have made where there was a drop or two. But again, everybody in the league does at some point drop a pass. I'm just saying that when you have that much of a rotation at quarterback, some of the drops seem like they're more glaring because he was really the only guy on the wideout or the wide receiver core that was making plays, or it seemed so. So I think he got a lot more of negative feedback from that. But I think that it's number one it's kind of cliche, but can he solidify himself as a wide receiver one next season? And I'm talking NFL. Can he get everybody to look at him like, you know what, when I see Michael Pittman Jr. pass for the Indianapolis Colts in fantasy, I look at him like a wide receiver one. Can he start to get that consensus opinion? And I'm really intrigued to see how he's going to mesh with such a young and inexperienced quarterback. I know Richardson in his I think it was his pre-draft interview or combine interview, didn't like the word raw, but he is raw. So I'm really intrigued to see how a guy like Pittman, who's gone through all these quarterbacks, is going to mesh with another new face and for the years to come. So those are my 2 questions.
Yeah, I like those, and I think those are fair questions. And for me, it does kind of go back to the wide receiver one debate. And honestly, I think Patrick put it perfectly. Is he a wide receiver one for the Colts? I think so. I don't think that's really up for debate, at least right now, until the Colts either trade for a wide receiver, sign a free agent wide receiver that's better than Pittman, or somehow the Colts end up drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. next spring, which is at this point highly unlikely. But when you're talking about Pittman, can he be considered a wide receiver one for the rest of the league? Can he kind of enter that upper echelon of wide receivers? I'm not talking about maybe top 5 wide receivers. I don't think that's necessarily a fair assessment. But I think when you're talking about, can Michael Pittman Jr. enter that top 10 to 12 wide receiver in the NFL, where he can be consistently counted upon to go out there each season, get you about 100 balls, get you 1,300 yards, and get you 6 to 8 touchdowns every season. And I think if you can get that out of Michael Pittman Jr., that's a solid wide receiver one. That's about what T.Y. Hilton was getting and I think everybody would consider T.Y. Hilton a wide receiver one in his prime. He certainly put up the production for it, and I think Pittman can get to that level as well. What T.Y. Hilton had on his side was Andrew Luck and the consistency of Andrew Luck through the first few years of his career, which Pittman hasn't had. So if Pittman can get some consistency with a quarterback, a la Anthony Richardson, those two start to work together over the next few years, then I think that's going to bump up Pittman's production and his numbers consistently. Because when you want to judge him on other things, I think one of the biggest things to judge a wide receiver on is separation. Michael Pittman ranked in the to quote Jim Irsay, the upper quartile of guys that create separation versus man coverage or versus zone coverage. So he's a guy that can consistently get open. Can he work on that? Certainly. But when you're considering all the other wide receivers in the league, Pittman is on the upper end of that. So can this consistency with a quarterback, can he really get to the top 10 to 12 wide receivers in the NFL where you feel comfortable saying, you know what, Pittman is a wide receiver one for the Colts. And when the Colts are in a pinch on a third down or a tough down, everyone in the building knows that Anthony Richardson's going to throw it to Michael Pittman Jr. and he can still go out there and make a play.
Yeah, and again, it might take a little bit of time at the very start of the season. Let's hypothetically say Richardson starts. You might see a little bit of miscommunication. You might see some badly thrown balls, or maybe Pittman has one route in mind and Richardson has another. We see plays like that even from veterans. All right, so it might take time, but I'm telling you, Pittman has the skill set to fit Richardson's passing ability. All right. And where he really excels. So I think that this is a good recipe for Michael Pittman, like you said, to not only have 1,000 yards, but to make an impact, especially in the red zone again, and actually catch some touchdowns. Because that's really where I think he caught a lot of short passes, which he's not really it's not a strong suit. And then he really wasn't targeted as much probably in the red zone as he should have been. So
I would agree. Nathan has a question here. Hello, guys. Will Richardson's contract get done before day one of training camp? Yeah, I would definitely assume so. There's nothing to worry about on that. They just have a lot of other things that they have to work through with those first round guys. I would not worry about Richardson's contract. We have another super chat from Inside the Shoe. Really appreciate your support. Love to see you in the chat, Inside the Shoe. They asked, where do y'all see Isaiah McKenzie in our offense? So we're going to talk about Isaiah McKenzie later in the show, but what we could answer this real quick, Drake. I think I'll go first on this. I see Isaiah McKenzie battling for that slot receiver starting position, possibly even winning that competition with Josh Downs. We'll have to see how things go out during camp. But I think primarily Isaiah McKenzie will be in the slot. But as he said when we interviewed him a couple months back, he could be used all over the offense. We might even see some plays where he's lined up in the backfield and could be more of that gadget guy. But I think Isaiah McKenzie will have a prominent role in this Colts offense. What do you think, Drake?
Yeah, it was really interesting what he said in that interview where we had him on. He said he kind of had an energy about him that he just wants to compete. He just wants to do something to help the team, but he said he really wants to get a Pro Bowl. And, I think that would be really interesting. I agree that I think he's going to be mostly in the slot. You'll see him on some gadget plays, but also he's got a lot of experience returning kicks and punts. I mean, he might be able to compete for that kick returner, punt returner spot if Dallas Flowers gets upended by him. So I think you're going to see him in a lot of roles, though, but especially in that slot. He's going to give Richardson a veteran look for short passes, I think.
Inside the Shoe, really appreciate the super chat. You're the absolute man. And to kind of cap off our talk on Michael Pittman, Drake, what do you see his impact being in 2023?
I think he's without question kind of going back to what we said our expectations are. He's going to be the wide receiver one for the Colts. All right. I don't really think there's any debating that. He's going to help Anthony Richardson get adjusted. He's going to be a focal point for Anthony Richardson's passing when he needs a play, regardless of if he's the NFL equivalent of a wide receiver one or not. He's going to have to play like one because I think Richardson's going to lean on him. Steichen's offense and Michael Pittman Jr. really entices me. I think that's going to give him a chance to make some cool things happen. And I do think he's going to have more of an impact in the red zone. I think he's going to get there's a lot of mouths to feed, especially with that tight end group being so big. But man, I'm telling you, I think that Michael Pittman is going to easily get past 4, 6, maybe even 7 touchdown catches, finally going to score some points for the team.
Yeah, I think he's going to be that security blanket for an Anthony Richardson as he gets going early. We've seen the past quarterbacks over the last couple seasons with Carson Wentz. He was Wentz's security blanket. Mm-hmm. He was Matt Ryan's security blanket. So going these it seems like whoever's the quarterback, they gravitate to Michael Pittman and aware where he is on every single play. But like I said earlier, I'm very excited to see how Shane Steichen uses Michael Pittman. I do think he is going to be, again, a vocal point for this offense. Like you mentioned, Drake, just right there with Jonathan Taylor. You want to get your best guys the football. Jonathan and Michael Pittman Jr. best players on this Colts offense. So they're going to look to him early and often to try to get Anthony Richardson settled down. And I love the point you made about him getting more red zone touches. But I think what we're going to see a little bit different from last year, we're going to start to see Michael Pittman down the field a little bit more, to use that big body, those long arms to win those contested catches down the field that he so often did win with Carson Wentz. Just didn't get those opportunities last year. So I'm very excited for the Colts to see what they have with Michael Pittman this year. And if I was the Colts, I would probably lock Pittman up before the season starts, because if he has a breakout season with the Colts this year, that's just going to drive that price tag way up. Right now, I think you could get him for that mid wide receiver 1 money, but if he has a Pro Bowl level season, he's going to be one of those top 5 to 7 guys in the NFL, and rightfully so. So you might just want to cash in and lock him up before that price ends up going up on Michael Pittman Jr. And then the next guy we're going to talk about here is Alec Pierce, a guy that came onto the scene, had a nice rookie season, didn't break any records or anything, but I think having Alec Pierce in this offense, in an explosive offense, is just what the doctor ordered for number 14. So what are your expectations for Alec Pierce, Drake, as he heads into his sophomore season?
Man, I think he's going to easily. I mean, hey, when you had a season like 2022, the only place to go is up. All right, so I think that he's going to make that second year jump in production. I think that he fits perfectly in Steichen's scheme. So I think that he will be Richard's legitimately deadliest threat deep. That's going to be the number 1 guy you cannot let beat you, because he's got lightning speed and he's got high jumping ability and he's tall. So he's going to really catch the attention of a lot of defenses. And I do think he's going to be targeted more. I don't think he was targeted enough between the laughable at best QB rotation. But I also think, going back to what we said about Michael Pittman, man, look for Alec Pierce to get some more red zone targets. 2 touchdowns simply was not enough for somebody like him.
We have another super chat from Patrick here. Happy 5th birthday to Henry. Whoever Henry is, hey, happy 5th birthday to Henry. I don't know. I mean, I see in your profile picture there, Patrick, you've got a dog. So if it's a dog, I mean, Drake and I, big dog guys. We absolutely love dogs around here. So if it's a dog, happy birthday. If it's a person, hey, happy 5th birthday to Henry. Again, Patrick, thank you so much for all of your support. But this offense is perfect for Alec Pierce. You're going to see a lot more deep balls Alec Pierce's way. I think towards maybe to the middle to end of last season, we saw Pierce kind of hit maybe a rookie wall towards the end of the year, but it also wasn't helped by the catastrophic quarterback play that we were witness to as well. But I think Alec Pierce, not only can he be somebody that really the Colts can use on those deep shots from Anthony Richardson, I think we're going to see a more well-rounded Alec Pierce, not somebody that just that can only get those contested deep balls. I think he's been really working hard on his route running this offseason to be a more well-rounded wide receiver. So that way he's trusted in different instances, whether it's short, medium, or deep, he's able to get open more. I think coming from maybe a smaller school and a little bit lesser competition in the conference that Cincinnati plays at, he definitely struggled with the press coverage and the physicality of the NFL. So another year in an NFL strength and conditioning program certainly will help Alec Pierce as well. But I think we're just going to see not only a guy that can excel on those deep balls, but just a more well-rounded wide receiver in Alec Pierce this year.
Well, and he's going to also get some continuity at quarterback. I know he's only been in the league 1 year, but the dude's already had 3 freaking quarterbacks. I mean, it's incredible what he was able to do as a rookie who came from a team that played in, maybe some lesser competition with a potentially rag-armed veteran, Nick Foles, who had no idea what was going on, and Sam Ehlinger, who may not have been ready. I mean, he still made some big plays. So I'm excited that he's going to get someone like Richardson. He's going to get someone like Steichen. And finally, you're going to get, again, continuity. It's been a big word in this episode.
Shout out to Logan Schmidt for joining us just a half hour late this evening. Hey, since I give it to Stats Matt, I got to give it to Logan now.
That's
But
right.
appreciate you being here, Logan, as always. But Drake, I kind of touched on it where some of the question marks for Alec Pierce. But what do you think are his biggest question marks as gets into a new offense, new quarterback, and also trying to establish himself in the NFL as a legitimate threat?
Well, hey, I think he's in the right offense. I do not think that he belongs in a conservative offense of any kind. I think he needs to be in one that's aggressive. So he's
True.
in that. Um, can he continue that to improve that route running? We saw that he has incredible ability deep with the deep ball, 50-50 ball, creating separation. Can he get that route running on point? Because that will really, I'm telling you, that's going to expand how much he can do. And also, can he be, it's kind of similar, but can he be more than just a vertical threat? Can you potentially, maybe if you're on the 10-yard line, could you completely throw the defense off and throw this dude a screen pass? This big, huge frame is running 10 yards. Like, use him in different ways other than just a jump ball guy, vertical threat guy. Those are the two things that I'm looking for some answers on. And I think that, honestly, he's got a lot of potential to get those short up.
Yeah, I do too. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for Alec Pierce this year. I think the biggest thing for me is because last year technically Paris Campbell was the wide receiver 2 for the
Yeah.
Colts. I think Paris Campbell was the one that getting a lot more of those opportunities, but now Alec Pierce is jumping into that wide receiver 2 role. Can he keep up the production or up his production when he's getting tougher matchups on the outside, when there's being more attention drawn to Alec Pierce, besides him being just a third option in his offense, because now he is that quote unquote wide receiver 2, or that second option for the wide receivers in this Colts offense. So getting more attention from defenses, can he overcome that and still become a viable threat where defenses have to respect him and his ability? Shout out to my wife, Danielle Moore, for the super sticker there. Thank you so much for your nightly super sticker on this show. Thank you so much for your support as she's enjoying her summer off from teaching. Thank you so much, my beautiful wife, Danielle. But Drake, let's dive into this. What's Alec Pierce's impact in 2023? Because if all things go well, I think we're talking about Alec Pierce having a massive impact just because of his fit in this offense. But if he doesn't step up to the occasion, then I think there's going to be some heat on Alec Pierce, whether he can be a legitimate option for this Colts team moving forward. So what do you think his impact is going to be this season?
Well, look, again, he's got a quarterback who's willing to throw deep and a coach who wants to do the same thing. So I think that last year can almost be an outlier, really. But I do think that he suits Anthony Richardson's strengths the best of anybody on the receiving core. I think he could be leaned on for the deep ball, just like Pittman's leaned on for volume catches. Man, if you're looking for a deep shot, he might just throw it up to Pierce, and just hope he can go get it. So he's still the best deep threat on the team. I do think that's his biggest impact right now. But again, I think he can also get more red zone targets, and with those deep shots, he could potentially start opening up other opportunities for some other guys underneath, because the more you shoot deep on a defense, the more that they're going to start relaxing that secondary, and it's going to open up a lot underneath.
I really like this stat line from Stats Matt Drake: 55 catches for 800 yards and 4 touchdowns. That really seems about the sweet spot for me for Alec Pierce. I would be very happy with 55 catches, 800 yards, 4 TDs. That's a solid number 2 option, I think, when you're talking about a rookie quarterback, new option, new offense. I think that'd be a very good spot for Alec Pierce. I definitely think, like you mentioned, we're all expecting some deep shots to Alec Pierce, and for him to win a good amount of those. I think because of what we saw last season as a rookie, and I think he's just going to continue to grow from there. He has that volleyball background. His brother and him have also that basketball background. Hell, his brother plays basketball at Princeton. They went on that run in the NCAA tournament. But I think Alec Pierce doesn't have to light the world on fire for it to be a successful season. You want to see improvements in the route running. You want to see him become a legitimate threat on the outside, and you don't want him to completely disappear when he's getting matched up with a tough cornerback. You want to see him be more physical. You want to see him win some of those matchups. But again, his primary role in his offense is going to be that vertical deep threat, and it's going to be fun to see that connection with him and Anthony Richardson, because remember when we talked about mini camp and OTAs, that note that we talked about where every time Anthony Richardson was on the field in a team setting, whether it was 11 on 11 or 7 on 7, whether it was the first team or second team, Alec Pierce was out there with Anthony Richardson. The Colts want to get those two going off the right foot and really starting to create chemistry early, so that way that can be they can exploit. So I'm excited for the sophomore season from Alec Pierce, and I think just the fact that he's in this type of offense, it's going to suit him really, really well. Now we get to a battle that I think is going to be the most interesting battle when talking about the wide receivers, and it's for that slot wide receiver role. Josh Downs, the third pick out of North Carolina, versus Isaiah McKenzie, the free agent signing from the Buffalo Bills. So when we talk about this battle, Drake, what do you think? Let's start with Josh Downs. Where do you think Josh Downs may have an edge over Isaiah McKenzie?
I think Josh Downs probably has an edge, and this is no disrespect because I think Isaiah McKenzie's a great receiver, but I think that Josh Downs is more of a true slot receiver. I think that he's the volume guy. I think he's the quick, twitchy guy who also he's tiny, but my God, this guy's catch radius, it is stupid. It's ridiculous. Anything that's within arm's length, I mean, you might as well just at least call it a pretty good chance he's going to get the ball. So I do think he's probably got better hands. I think that long term, this guy is I think that there's a lot of plans for Josh Downs, especially kind of like we were talking about. You got some burners that can push a defense deep, and then you got tight ends that can also occupy the linebackers. Well, that opens up a lot of opportunities in the Shane Steichen offense for a guy like Downs. So he might even be a better fit than McKenzie long term for this offense. But man, huge safety blanket for Richardson. They're already starting to build a rapport. And again, I always go back to it. His hands are ridiculous. Reggie Wayne literally said he thought he was the best wide receiver in the draft.
Yeah, hands is a huge one, because Isaiah McKenzie throughout his career has been known for drops in some situations, and with Josh Downs, that the kid hardly ever drops a pass. It seems like whenever it's thrown his way, if it's catchable, Josh Downs is going to get his hands on it and bring that in. And then when you talk about the separation that Josh Downs creates on those short throws, it's just kind of the perfect quick win wide receiver for this Shane Steichen offense that Steichen was looking for. Compare it to, they won't play the same position in this offense, but you kind of compare it to Devontae Smith with the Philadelphia Eagles. Devontae Smith was a quick win wide receiver who could win off the line of scrimmage, catch the ball, and do some damage with yards after the catch. Now, Devontae Smith's a little bit taller than Josh Downs, maybe just a little bit bigger, but Josh Downs is still that quick win wide receiver, fast off the line, can really create separations. You get the ball in his hands and just let him go to work. Isaiah McKenzie, on the other hand, is more of that gadget guy that I was saying. Yeah, I think Isaiah McKenzie is faster than Josh Downs, has probably more track speed, more straight line speed, but you can use him in a variety of different ways. You can use him on those jet sweeps. You can use him out of the backfield. You can put him in the slot. The Buffalo Bills really moved him around last year to to really take advantage of the matchup. So, where are some of the areas that you think Isaiah McKenzie kind of has the advantage over Josh Downs?
I mean, I think Isaiah McKenzie understands it really. I'm not saying he's not a great player, but I mean, it is the NFL experience of knowing those defenses that really suits him well. He's similar to Downs in his size and kind of his role, but he's going to know where to sit down in those zone coverages. He's going to find the pockets. He's gonna know like when to potentially call, even a hot route at the line. I mean, this is a guy who's going to understand his role in the offense better than Downs will. Now, I think that Isaiah McKenzie has way more opportunity to be in more places on the field. Again, kick returner, punt returner, potentially in the backfield, potentially on the outside on a reverse, or he's obviously going to play the slot. I think that his advantage is he's going to be able to be more versatile. I think.
Mhm.
And I do think early on he's going to have the advantage. I think that Downs is going to have to actually learn from McKenzie, if I'm being honest. But I mean, look, man, Josh Downs, he's a great receiver, fantastic prospect. But McKenzie right now, he's the proven. He's the guy who you know what you're going to get. And right now, he's probably got a little bit of a leg up on Downs, if we're being honest.
And talking when we talked to Isaiah McKenzie earlier this year, right after he signed with the Colts, I mean, 100% a locker room guy. He
Oh,
is
yeah.
going to be somebody that wide receiver room gravitates to. He's going to be a leader, and he's going to be somebody that isn't afraid to help out the younger guys, like an Alec Pierce, like a Josh Downs. I expect Josh Downs to probably be at the hip of Isaiah McKenzie all through training camp and all through the year, despite them battling it out for snaps there at that slot wide receiver position. So it's a good thing to have, and I think both of them are going to see considerable amount of snaps for this offense this year, and each one of them is going to be used in different ways. So Drake, if you had to kind of make a prediction right now, what do you think that battle is going to look like? Josh Downs versus Isaiah McKenzie. I can split this up into two parts. Who do you think starts day one, or who do you think is the starter week one? And then by the end of the season, is it that same starter, or does somebody else kind of take over that role?
Well, I mean, I think also if you think about the fact that Downs is he's just kind of like maintaining a little small injury, and McKenzie's not. I do think that McKenzie's going to start day one. I do think though, as the year goes along, and at some point, you may see Josh Downs take that role because I think that at the end of the day, this is a business, and they want to get Josh Downs out there as soon as possible in unison with Richardson. They're both rookies. Okay. They want to get these guys, connecting mentally in the game rather than just in practice. So for starters, it's going to be McKenzie, in my opinion, but I think at some point during the season, maybe week 9, 10, 11, something like that, maybe even sooner, you'll probably see Josh Downs take the role.
I feel like there's a lot of parallels with Josh Downs and T.Y. Hilton. I mean, when the Colts took last time they took a first round quarterback in Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton was a third round pick. Anthony Richardson, first round pick, Josh Downs, third round pick. And I think both of those guys, smaller guys that started out in the slot and ended up being something more than just a slot wide receiver. Well, when T.Y. Hilton started his career, he wasn't the bona fide starter at the slot wide receiver. He would come in and do some work here and there, but as the season went along, Colts fans and everybody realized, oh, T.Y. Hilton's going to be a problem for years to come. So I kind of see that playing out with Josh Downs. Maybe he doesn't start week one. Maybe he doesn't get a lot of production early in the season. But as he gets more comfortable and as he gets more opportunities within this Colts offense, I think we're really going to see Josh Downs shine. And some people already think he's going to be a problem, but I think we'll put the rest of the world on notice that Josh Downs will be a problem for other teams across the NFL. And then I think one of the bigger questions just about this wide receiver group in general, Drake, and it's kind of been a question that the Colts have had for a number of years now, is do they have enough? Do the Colts have enough depth at the wide receiver position to last the year, to be able to support Anthony Richardson, all of those kind of things? So do you believe that the Colts have enough depth at the wide receiver position, or should they go out and bring in some more help?
So I actually did take a gander at this. I looked at the Indianapolis Colts website, and initially I was like, they probably need some extra depth. They really don't. They have quite a few names. In fact, they have so many names they're gonna have to cut some people. So I really think that if you're talking about the big five, all right, we're talking about Michael Pittman, talking about Alec Pierce, Isaiah McKenzie, Josh Downs, Ashton Doolin, and Brashad Perriman. In fact, that's six. All right. There's
Mhm.
like five or six other names that are behind them too, like it seems. So I think the Colts have got everybody they want. I don't think you're going to see anything else happen. Like I said, I think they're set with depth, and I think that right now they're trying to analyze who do we keep, actually.
I actually think they're in a better spot than they have been in terms of depth because you just named six right there.
Hmm.
Five of them are locks to make the roster.
Hmm.
Perriman, I think, would be on the bubble. You're also talking about maybe Mike Strawn, who's been on the roster the past couple seasons. They've worked with some other guys that are brought in as camp bodies here. There's going to be the competition to make this roster for the wide receiver position, especially with that last spot, is going to be pretty intense throughout training camp in this summer. So it's gonna be very fun to watch. Another super chat from Patrick here, and he says Megastron is mega gone. That might have to be a headline
Oh, God.
for one of our articles if that indeed becomes true. But again,
Uh,
Patrick, legend is the only
we'll
thing you
throw
should.
you some dollars if one of us uses that for a title.
Yeah, there
If he
we
ever gets
go.
cut.
There we go. Patrick, that's, I mean, like I said, legend is the only thing you can be described as. Appreciate all of the support. But Drake, to kind of cap off this episode here, you already gave kind of some six names, but let's run through it. What is your depth chart for the wide receiver position of the Colts entering the 2023 season?
So I stand by it. I think it's going to be one is Pittman, two is Pierce, three is McKenzie, and this is week one. Four will be Downs, five will be Doolin, and number six will be Perriman. And I think that number six spot, I do think Doolin's going to stay on the team. Okay, but perhaps he stays in that special teams role and becomes a wide receiver six. And they're like, hey, Perriman's more of a deep threat. They move him up. I think that those will be interchangeable.
I really like those six, and those are my six as well. And I think each one of those, I mean, of those top three guys, you have a backup that fits their role pretty nicely. So when you're talking about the X wide receiver position with Michael Pittman, I think when you're talking about Ashton Doolin as being that backup X. Well, Ashton Doolin, he's known for having incredible speed. He's also
Hmm.
bigger than a lot of people think. He's their best blocking wide receiver, and he's that he can also act as a possession wide receiver. When you're talking about the other outside wide receiver position, the Z with Alec Pierce, deep threat, Brashad Perriman. A very good deep threat and has proven it throughout his career. He can play that Z position, and really Doolin and Perriman could really be interchangeable for those outside positions. And then we're talking about that battle inside with Josh Downs and Isaiah McKenzie. Those guys can really complement one another. I'll go Pittman, Pierce. I think by the end of the year it'll be Downs. Probably starts out as McKenzie in the starting slot, and then the other one will be that wide receiver four, Doolin, Perriman. Those will be my six. But I honestly am more comfortable with the Colts wide receiver position than I have been in years. And it's all out there now. It's now time for those young guys, Pittman, Pierce, Downs, go out there and take the reins and be that next great trio of wide receivers for the Indianapolis Colts. And it starts this year with Anthony Richardson. So that's our show for this evening, guys. Really a lot of fun talking about this wide receiver
Yeah.
position and what it not only what it is right now, but what it could be. That's the exciting part, that all of these guys are young, up and coming wide receivers, guys on the cusp of their prime, and Michael Pittman, Pierce up and coming, the possibilities with Josh Downs, fun group. And I think the Colts have a really some good talent at this position. I want to give a shout out to Patrick, as always, for his super chats, just absolutely dominating tonight. Sarah, inside the shoe, my beautiful wife Danielle, thank you all so much for the support. And it's been a lot of fun talking about this group. And if you haven't done so already, please, we'd really appreciate a follow on all all of our social medias, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow at Colts on FN on Twitter and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I are going live, and hit that like on this episode because tonight was a really good one. So go ahead and hit that like button as well. If you can't catch us on YouTube, subscribe, rate, and review on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. We always appreciate those as well. Drake, well, it's the dog days of the NFL season. We're still pushing out that content on horseshoehuddle.com.
Right.
What are some things that people can check out on the site that you've written?
So I just released 3 strengths and weaknesses for both the offense and defense that could potentially be present in the 2023 season. And then one that's going to start is 3 potential Pro Bowlers for the offense in 2023. And then later there will be the defensive side too. So go check those out.
I've read both those pieces. Great reads. Go check those out. Wanted to shout out to our fans and all the supporters. I've received a lot of good comments about the Anthony Richardson rookie files piece over the weekend. So thank you all so much for reading that. It was a fun one to write, and I think it will make everybody even more of a fan of Anthony Richardson. But for me, tomorrow on the docket, Tuesday morning, Juju Brents, that rookie files piece is going live. So that one's going to be fun. And we'll have Josh Downs rookie files later in the week. You can follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL. And we will be back Thursday night to talk about the tight end position, and some up and comers are definitely in that group as well. Very exciting group to chat about. So until Thursday night, from Drake and I, have a good one.